what should the Queen have done when it came to the Falklands?
Call for the resolution of the islands to be handed over to Argentina.
Why?
Because weren't they? Oh God, I'm not educated on the Falkland Wars.
You came in like a little bit strong about me like defending the monarchy. It's like I'm not defending. I'm just like kind of taken aback by this like phenomena of like Americans just the Queen dies and then everyone just starts like ramming into the topic of the monarchy that they just seem to have learned about like 5 minutes ago, and just like, oh what, like, yeah, you think I shouldn't celebrate her death? Well, she could have used her powers for good. I'm like, what principle is this under? Is this like anarcho-monarchism or like Marxism
No.
with autocratic tendencies? Like I don't understand it. Hello?
Okay, how much better do I sound?
A million times better.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I think we left off at the how much culpability does she have as a constitutional monarch?
Yeah, we can just honestly for the VOD you can just start again because everyone will hear you now. So
Okay.
yeah, just start with like, I guess I said it's not cool to celebrate people's deaths, especially given the fact that like she's, you know, insanely popular. If you want to have political sway, etc., etc., it's just kind of a weird thing to do. There's plenty of ways you can criticize without doing that, and yeah, and then you go from there.
Yeah, so I'd say that if a person was like sufficiently like did bad things or like a piece of shit in life, I think it's valid to, I guess, sort of dance on their grave, quote unquote. Like if Vladimir Putin died tomorrow, I'd be fine with dancing on his grave. Like I'm fine with like dancing on Reagan's and Margaret Thatcher's grave, dancing or freaking making fun of their deaths. I think that's fine, and I think that I'd argue that all the atrocities that happened under the British Empire during the Queen's reign, she had enough lobbying and cultural influence and immense popularity to do something about or to change and sway that while it was happening to the point where when she's head of state and that's happening, she ends up being like complicit in it. And I guess we should list off examples, but we were going on the Kenyan concentration camps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for Kenya, I mean, yeah, we could be nitpicky. I could say that when the camps were open, they were relatively secretive. The Red Cross didn't even get to do a report on them until 1957, 2 years before they closed. They didn't really show up in Parliament as a discussion to any great extent until 59, 1 year before they closed. Whether or not they were being described appropriately to the Queen in one of the weekly meetings, they can't really say. Like, it was even in 2005, reports on the camps still were coming out that hadn't been heard of before. So we can just assume she did know about Kenya. Okay, we can just go with that. Do you have any other examples?
I guess the Troubles comes to mind.
Okay. So do you?
And
So
the Irish side of my family, like I have relatives that were like in that and part of that, so they tell me about that. But yeah, I think the Troubles comes to mind. I think South African apartheid. Now, this is something I did hear on Twitter and that I don't actually have a source on, so it might be completely made up. But there were people saying that she wanted to like reconquer South Africa to reinstitute apartheid or something.
okay, Okay, this is why people shouldn't get shit from Twitter, right?
Yeah,
No,
I don't
the one. Okay, so the Queen has never been outspoken on foreign policy. Like most of her lobbying power was used on domestic stuff for her own wealth. When it comes to foreign policy, the one prime minister she ever showed any disdain for really was Thatcher. And when Thatcher was the only Commonwealth leader to not impose sanctions on South Africa, the Queen reportedly fell out with Thatcher in one of their meetings. It was the first time ever that the Queen actually threatened to cancel the weekly meetings, which some people might argue wasn't enough of a use of power. But to be honest, as a constitutional monarch, I think that was like a pretty smart move because she did just enough to get it into the press. The Queen is dismayed by Thatcher on apartheid, which is really embarrassing for a prime minister. It lets the public very clearly know where you stand without abusing your power. Yeah, I mean, Mandela regarded her as like a dear friend. Like he actually would constantly refer to her as his dear friend Elizabeth, which he never, I don't think he ever did for Thatcher. So, no, that's dead wrong. Like she was, yeah, like I think apartheid was probably her at her most outspoken when it came to foreign policy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, all right, I thought so because like I saw that on Twitter and I'm like, really? Like, did that really happen? And I guess I forgot about it before I bothered to like check for a source. But so yeah, I
Just
guess
to
the trouble.
sorry, but yeah, wait, before we get to the so we can go to the troubles, but it's like you also mentioned that she
And oh wait,
resisted.
Rhodesia. That's right.
So yeah, so you Rhodesia. So that's like maybe the other time where she was fairly not really outspoken, but she was advised not to go to the Commonwealth meeting in '79, which was in Zambia, and Thatcher didn't want her to go to that. She went anyway, and one of the top motions of that meeting was to push for South Rhodesia's independence. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not something I'm like crazy researched on though.
Um, do you want to go to the troubles? I mean, in your message here, you've got like resisted decolonization movements. You've got did Kenya. You've got the Falkland Wars, the troubles. Just want to go straight to the troubles, or do you want to cover any of those earlier ones?
Sure, the troubles.
Okay.
Okay, so I think it was it the Bloody Sunday massacre? There are so many massacres that the names are all confusing, but
Mm.
I believe and I believe she um didn't like speak out against that she didn't like try and stop that.
Yep.
And then obviously when it continued through, I believe it continued through the 90s, that was yeah, it was pretty bad on the part of the British.
Yeah, and so I could even add to your argument there that like for the longest time she only ever visited unionists in Ireland. Um, as far as the past goes, I mean, I think the kind of like reconciliation process with that was like kind of done. Like you can see videos of her after the Good Friday Agreement where she's meeting with Martin McGuinness, like an IRA fighter, during Bloody Sunday actually, like and they're shaking hands and he actually gave her like a little tour around his own jail cell. There's the video of her like laying the wreath down on the for the commemorating the deaths of all the Republicans from the Troubles. There's the one criticism that you can make that her speeches about reconciliation tended to be more to do with acknowledgement without apology. But again, my question would be like whether or not that's up to her to apologize, or if it's up to the people who write her speeches or the government. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really like even though she apologized and or reconciliation and reconciled and stuff like that. I guess it doesn't really change the fact that yeah, she was like pretty complicit in it the whole time it was happening, like up until the end where she did the whole reconciliation thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue, yeah, it was a very like bad thing, and but yeah, no, I know there was like a lot of like the Good Friday Agreement and stuff like that. But no, I'd argue that yeah, she was pretty like morally like could be held morally like culpable for while it was happening.
So she didn't do enough to stop some of these things when they were happening, basically.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's not like she has like absolute gut. Like, it's not like it's the 16th century and she can just like rule by decree. But she did have enough like power and at least symbolic power or like borderline like biggest celebrity ever power
Mm-hmm.
or sway or lobbying or I mean she has the ears of or had the ears of basically every international like leader and stuff like that. So yeah, I think she had at least she ought to have done more to oppose or get or gain opposition to all the all that.
Um, would you describe yourself? It's a bit of a political compass meme, but would you describe yourself as more of a libertarian leftist or an authoritarian leftist?
I don't tend to trust like the political compass models, but I taken the test and I've always landed in the bottom left like green.
Yeah, so like libertarian more than authoritarian leftist. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay. So it just makes me really confused then that you're kind of suggesting that an unelected monarch should have abused her power to stand against the will of a democratically elected government.
The will of the democratically elected government being like the continuing of like oppression in Ireland.
Hmm. Yeah,
If the yes,
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I don't know if do you think like of course they shouldn't have done that, but I think is the standard that you want that like if there's a cause that you think is that you say is wrong or like or even that the monarch thinks is wrong, she should be the one to stand up and use her power to change that.
I think as long as that so because we're talking about the world we live in now. In an ideal world, I think there should be no monarchy. I don't like monarchies as a concept, and you agree. But as long as there is a monarchy with that power, and as long as she like wasn't using that power and influence to advocate for the dissolution of the monarchy as an institution, which I know is a tall order to expect her to do, but as long as that isn't the case, and as long as there is that power, I'm I'm fine with it being used to speak out against the troubles. I think that's a fine invocation of the power if it has to exist.
So some well, first of all, that power doesn't necessarily exist because she doesn't really speak against the act of parliament. Like the only thing she and she even when it comes to her lobbying for her own wealth, that's not her like speaking out. That's if
Well,
anything, the
I can
government saying, "Hey, Your Majesty, can we do you a little favor here?" Like, yeah. So I don't know. Like this is kind of to me, this just sounds like some unaccountable like authoritarian power is fine so long as it's for like the greater good or something. I don't. I think that's like a
no,
really fucked precedent to try and
no,
set. Like.
no. Not that unchecked authoritarian power is good because it's being done for the common good. Like, you know, if this was the 16th century and the king decided to institute, welfare or public education, right? Back in the old days, that was like something that was new. And he decided to make like public education a right.
Mhm.
I would take issue with the fact that that was being like instituted by decree from an unelected head. However, I wouldn't really mind so much that consequentially it was being used to institute something good, but I would still want there to be no unelected head that could have that much like cultural or sorry, no, back in the 15th century case it would be absolute power, but in the case of the troubles and her sway on that, I'd be fine with that sort of power um being used to call for an end.
Yeah, so the difference is that if you're talking 16th century, then what we have is just just an absolute monarchy. It's not there's any alternative lying around. That's just the system we have. Whereas the system we have under the monarch who just died is not that system. The system we have under the queen was uh she doesn't
Right.
speak out against the government. That's not what she's supposed to
Right.
do.
But that's I think we were comparing like absolute power and like in a problematic institution being used to do something good.
Yeah, I don't really favor that. I don't think, no, even if it's for the right thing, I don't think a monarch should be doing shit because they're not elected. I don't really, because then what's the precedent there? Like, if there's a like, what if like the next monarch believes that, like you've set the precedent now that it's okay for a monarch to stand up and speak against the government? Then what happens the next time a monarch like Edward VIII comes around and uses his power to, I don't know, like defend the fucking Nazis or something? Like, no, I don't. As long as we have a monarchy, and by the way it looks, we're going to have one for a very long time. They're still very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want monarchs to be have the impression that they can do shit. That's going to be a problem with Charles as well because he's known as the unspoken royal, the outspoken
Well,
royal. No, I don't want that.
well, I think as long as there's going to be a monarch, then whatever they do end up doing ought to be like for the greater good. Like as long as that power exists and there's like an atrocity going on, like like I guess troubles were an atrocity, but like a very bad thing going on, like the troubles. If
Mm.
you are in that position of power, then and you are not like advocating for its dissolution or its abolition, then the least you could do is use that power to sway and speak out against that. I think.
Yeah, so then you just need to bite the bullet then that some unaccountable benevolent power is okay if it's for your cause, right? That's kind of what you're saying you're okay with.
No, because even if it was used to do good, I would still be in favor for the dissolution of that absolute institution. I would just be like, I would just kind of be like, okay, well, this was the one time that, the absolute decision making actually was for something good. But I would still want like the monarchy to be abolished despite the fact that they did like one good thing.
So you want it to be okay for the monarch to use their power to go against the democratic will sometimes, but you also want to abolish that. So you basically give like expect the monarch to use more power while they exist, but ultimately abolish them.
No, expect that as long as the monarchy is present and existing and also here to stay for the foreseeable future, that anything they do end up doing, I would rather it be for the better good. Like, for example, speaking out against the fucking, the troubles. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that means but that all you have to understand that also means that if the queen wants something uh, that isn't something you would consider good, she's still going to have that power, right? Or or a monarch who comes after her will still have that power because
No, no, no.
it only takes one. If a queen speaks out against the troubles or Bloody Sunday, gets away with it, then that's just like a normal thing now. Monarchs, if they want to challenge the government, they can. I don't really. That's see how you might have a bit of a problem there.
Well, I guess we're thinking like in my ideal world, scenario number one, best case scenario, there is no monarch. But
Mm.
scenario number two, there has to be a monarch. Okay. If there has to be a monarch, if there has to be, I would much rather any action they do to interfere with other aspects of the government be used for the greater good. But again, I feel like you're saying, like, okay, well, if they do it once, then doesn't that mean they can just do that? And it's like, they
Mm.
could do that anyway. Like, they already have a tremendous amount of sway and lobbying power. And I believe the monarch is allowed to and has, like, at sometimes unilaterally been able to adjust how I believe the finances, public finances of the country end up being like hidden away, or what channels they go through, which are often like to the royal family where it's kept and hoarded,
Mm.
are hidden. And so she already has a lot of like influence like that. She's gonna have it anyway. As long as they do, then I'd rather be for something good.
Well, the problem is it's not unilateral. It's the government approaches her, and her and usually her like advisors or whatever, because I can't imagine her being much of a financier. Will pick through bits of a law to exempt the royal family, which is really bad. But like, again, I would maybe rather take that up with the government that allows that to happen because they shouldn't.
Yeah, but I don't think that absolves like the monarchy's responsibility for
No,
that.
no,
Like,
I don't absolve her for that because that is her using undue levels of power. That's the thing I don't like. I don't, and that's why my criticisms of the monarchy are to do with the domestic policy and finances because that's what she actually did step out of her way to do a little bit. And that's the thing I'm against. But you're talking about her basically just doing more of that, but just for a better cause than hiding her own wealth.
well, I would argue that in the world we live in, she does that sort of interference anyway. So as long as she is going to do that, then I'm like, if she uses it to do something good, then whatever.
Well,
But I would,
this isn't her interfering though. This is her being allowed to do it by our elected representatives, and that's kind of where that's where the main power, like where the main power is still held, because they're the ones who ultimately let it go in front of her, and they're the ones who let her ask for concessions. But ultimately, it's them who pass the bills. Like they could pass a bill that doesn't exempt the queen, and she can't stop that from. She has to sign off on that. Otherwise, what she's just going to like then she's going into your territory again and speaking up about it because it's not that she speaks up against policies that make you have to disclose your wealth. It's that she's asked by the government, and that's again that's like a corruption within our parliament. Though she hasn't
yeah,
unilaterally done shit. Like yeah, she's basically you've got a problem where elected governments will try to court her favor in really unsound ways, and she just takes advantage of it. or did take advantage of it. At least I think it was 4 laws that out of the 1,000 that we know she had some influence over. But yeah,
Yeah, but no, I guess you're right that there is a distinction between like her being approached with one and her um interfering. But yeah, and I would still. So, are you saying that if she used her power to call for an end or a de-escalation of the troubles, then that would have set the standard that she could have interfered um, for anything else?
yeah, because there are lots of things in Britain that are very popular that don't really go through all the time. Like the UK has like the average British citizen has the most fucking insane position on like crime and punishment or immigration, even though our immigration system's pretty rough. Most people I think want it to be more rough. And if the Queen could at one point, or Prince Charles or whoever the fuck else could actually have the precedent to be able to stand up and say, um, we want to go with like public opinion on this and that could sway the government decisions, like fuck no. And yeah, that's why it's not worth it. That's not like the kind of society I want to live in, where if the troubles is or uh if the British state's behavior in Ireland is getting changed, it has to come from the people or from the government, not from the monarchy. Yeah, because if the monarchy can do that, then they can do bad things, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, they already do bad things.
Well, they do bad things that the government allows them to. That's why the buck stops with the government, not with the monarchy.
Yeah, well, I'd still argue that when you have the power to speak out against like the troubles and stuff like that, and you don't, and you're head of state, then I
Well,
still think it's not like she'd be like writing a decree or like I will dissolve parliament unless you stop. Like, just use your soapbox you have.
yeah, which is a soapbox she did nothing to earn. It's a soapbox that she's abusing it however you look at it, right? She's doing something she's not supposed to do as a constitutional monarch.
Right, but as long as the monarchy exists, I'd rather the action it does on that soapbox be
Well, then
used
I
for.
would then I would wonder then, like, even according to you, like one of the problems that you brought up with the monarchy was like the Falkland Wars. I mean, what should the Queen have done when it came to the Falklands?
A call for the resolution of the islands to be handed over to Argentina?
Why?
Be- because weren't they? Oh God, I'm not educated on the Falkland Wars.
See, this is the problem, right? Like even you would want the Queen to do fucking mad shit. Like yeah, like this is why I don't want the monarch using power, because she could end up doing dumb shit like this. Like, yeah, the Falklands, what do you think happened in the Falklands? Why does Argentina need the Falklands? I mean,
I the history of the Falkland Wars. I am not fully educated on the background of that.
yeah, like, and I've seen this happen on Twitter like so many times as well. Like, this is why I don't want people I'm just so confused by these like criticism. Like, the Falklands is an island that was empty until like the 1800s, and then a bunch of fucking British people moved there, and they've lived there ever since. They're probably more British aesthetically than the average British person is. If you ever look at pictures of the Falklands, and then like Argentina, the invasion of the Falklands that Argentina started was under a fascist military junta, um, on an island where like they had a referendum in 2013 and like 3 people voted to be part of Argentina out of the 3,000 who lived there, and it's quite possible the 3 of them were memeing. Like, it's yeah, this is the problem I have is um like you've come in like, yeah, I remember on Twitter like you came in like a little bit strong about me like defending the monarchy. It's like I'm not defending. I'm just like kind of taken aback by this like phenomena of like Americans just the Queen dies and then everyone just starts like ramming into the topic of the monarchy that they just seem to have learned about like 5 minutes ago, and this like, oh, what, like, yeah, you think I shouldn't celebrate her death? Well, she could have used her powers for good. I'm like, what principle is this under? Is this like anarcho-monarchism or like
No, no, no.
Marxism with autocratic tendencies? Like, I don't understand it. Like, it just
No,
sounds like, no, what it sounds like, I'll let you go after. What it sounds like is, um, it sounds like people, there's a kind of mob mentality, usually on online, in the online left, around celebrating her death. And people are just retroactively trying to find as many fucking brown or black people's graves to dance on as an excuse for it. And then a flood of disinformation follows with it. It's just weird. I don't know.
No, I guess when you said like, is this anarcho-monarchism? No, it's like ultimately I'd like the monarchy abolished, but as long as it has power, I'd rather it be invoked for good.
Yeah, I completely disagree with that. I think it's like I think democracy should come first. I don't think like just because again, like you said, if they can be used for good, it can be used for bad. Like if the Queen spoke out against Britain defending the Falklands, I don't know, that would just be weird. Like that's like 3,000 people just left under the rule of a fascist junta because I don't know, the Queen listened to the wrong fucking leftists. I guess I don't know. Yeah. I guess we just fundamentally disagree then. I don't think constitutional monarchs should be interfering at all. And my criticisms of the Queen are when she is offered the opportunity to interfere with legislation and she took it. That's
Yeah. And I mean, I guess there was also things like in her personal life, like I know like the she helped the 12 million pound bailout for her son's pedophilia charges.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty bad. But yeah, I'll be honest, like I haven't done like extensive research into like the certainly I have not done as much as you have, and I'm also not British, so like I hardly knew about any history of the monarch up until up until she died, really.
Yeah, and it shows it's Americans, and I don't. Okay, I'm not going to hold this against you. Like you're not like a you don't have like great power and responsibility like some of these other like creators or big blue check marks have or whatever. Like the problem is that like yeah, Americans just like stepping out of their depth to talk about a different country and just jizzing out all their fucking political capital on a country that, by the way, like before the Queen died, 80% of people in the UK had a positive view of her. Even people who want to abolish the monarchy in the UK liked the Queen. Like that's a really normal thing here. And when you start saying like we're going to go straight into the fucking deep end of dancing on the grave and we're going to say 5 different things about why that's okay, 3 of which are bullshit. It just looks so fucking bad. It's like what do you like it depends on what your goal is, I guess, right? Like do you want to like do you want advocacy or do you want to live in a world where there are like more left wingers than right wingers? Or I guess if the alternative is you just want to have like this little club where everyone just leapfrogs each other over who can say the maddest shit, uh, then I guess that's maybe okay. But like personally, I don't know. I like it when if you go with dancing on the Queen's grave, then it's not only monarchists you're turning off a lot of leftists as well. And it's just so like unnecessary. It's because it's not like Putin. She's not advocate. She's not actively pushing a war. You know, she was a 96-year
Well,
old fucking like walking carcass who signed some forms and shook some hands by the end of her life. You know.
Well, I mean, she did sign off on a lot of like weapons deals to like Saudi Arabia that's being used to like drop bombs on like Yemen and perpetuate that.
And why did she wait? Why did she sign off? Wait, okay, I'm assuming she did, right? I don't know. I haven't looked into whether she personally signed off arms deals.
Yeah,
Again,
so
why did she like?
Britain,
Why did she sign off arms deals though? Right? Because the government did.
well, to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
anyone in that position should have said like, no, we're not selling it to this like borderline genocidal like war of aggression that Saudi Arabia has fought against Yemen.
Again, so you want her to override the government? Yeah.
I mean, if the government's decision is like, yeah, let's go give this insane fucking theocratic far right state waging a borderline genocidal war with no regard to civilian population that's creating the worst humanitarian crisis on earth, weapons to make it worse, I wouldn't exactly call it a blow to democracy to say like no like hold on like didn't in your Hassan Russia Ukraine video say that as far as like referendums go we need to like keep into consider the rights of other people, so if there was a referendum in America to like nuke Wyoming or nuke
Mm-hmm.
a state, then it would be morally just to override that, and democracy wasn't meaningfully hurt when you override it. I would argue the same for denying weapon sales to Saudi Arabia.
But I don't think there's so in my example, there's not some kind of like unaccountable uh power being invoked there, right? That's just like constitutional rights of or constitutional or like protect or like legal protections of minorities, which are again imposed by governments or like international laws, which are agreed upon by elected governments around the world. So I don't think that's a good comparison. I'm trying to find the evidence that the Queen is signing off arms deals. Eh, may- the
But
Queen, the one time when the Queen hazed the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, what did she do here? Oh God, did she actually snub a Saudi person? Wait, haze. What the fuck does haze mean?
um in America, usually hazing is like
It's a bad thing, isn't it?
yeah, let's just say that.
The Queen drove Prince Abdullah around. She took the driver's seat. She cucked him because they don't like it when women drive. That he was probably okay. It seems
That's
like every example, it's actually her just again not abusing power, but just doing these little, I guess like microaggressions against dictatorships and shit. I don't know. I can't find it.
okay.
If she was signing off arms deal, I mean, again, like I can just pretend she was and say, like, again, um, if she refuses to sign the arms deal, what the fuck's going to happen there? Like, it's going to because that is actually executive power being used there, not just influence. If you refuse to sign legislation that the government has given the okay to, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, but again, to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia, I don't think that. No, I think that's fine if you're blocking that. Yeah, just like it would be fine to block a resolution to nuke Wyoming. Yeah,
And to block the defense of the Falkland Wars, apparently, or the defense of the
I
Falkland Islanders.
yeah I again I am not knowledgeable on the Falkland Islands.
Yeah, and it's just, but yeah, okay. I think we're kind of just like at a kind of value based impasse here.
No, but I think like because I'm thinking back to what you said in your Hassan
No,
Ukraine
because
video.
the Hassan Ukraine point is completely different. Because when we talk about the idea of not being able to bomb Wyoming, that's because of like the way that that is prohibited is not through a benevolent power stepping in. It's prohibited through constitutional rights. Like it's the idea that democracy isn't absolute, obviously, because we have like. But again, these constitutional rights and these international laws and all that are okayed by democratically elected governments. So it's the whole thing of
Well, I mean, international law. I mean, Russia and is it Russia and like China on like the Human Rights Council or the Security Council? I would say that definitely international law is certainly not and to the extent in which the U.S. is a true democracy is up in the question. But I would also argue that in a similar vein that what Wyomingites, people who live in Wyoming, have a right not to get nuked. Yemenis people have a right not to have their fucking water filtration facility, the only one within 500 miles, be like absolutely destroyed by a Saudi airstrike that was sold to them by Britain.
um do you think what do you think would have happened if the Queen said no, I'm not signing this arms deal?
I'm not that knowledgeable into like British politics, so I don't know how accurate of a prediction I could make of that. But my first thought would probably there be a giant media frenzy about it, and everyone would forget about it in like a week or 2 weeks, and then maybe more people would because I feel like so many people in Britain, like, does your average person, I know your average person in America doesn't know the war in Yemen. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure your average person in Britain wouldn't know about the war in Yemen. If anything, the big media frenzy would probably educate people, like actually like let them know, like expose them to the horrors of that, and anyone with any basic moral facilities should see that like that what was happening, that what was proposed was wrong, because what Saudi is doing is wrong. If anything, I think if she denied that, it would there'd be a big like frenzy about that.
Okay.
But maybe
um so when you get that, and let's assume that the monarchy survives this move, which they, I don't know, maybe they would. if it was a popular
Oh,
enough thing.
you think
Um,
she'd be like black bagged in the street or something?
no, I think there would be a constitutional crisis, and we'd maybe have to abolish the monarchy. Yeah. Or it would just
Well,
get,
that
or
happened.
she would
Actually, that'd
just get
be good.
ignored, right? Like, yeah, maybe she would just get ignored because, like, again, the queen hasn't like used a veto in uh what since 1706. That's the last time a monarch used like actually used executive power in the UK. So,
Right.
um, yeah, but you realize that if she succeeds in doing that and stays the monarch, and then her kid becomes the monarch, and then maybe their kid becomes the monarch, then it's like it only takes them to support one other thing that's maybe popular amongst the British people that ends up being really bad.
Right, but I'd argue that that power shouldn't exist in the first place.
So do you think? Wait. Let's say I'm trying to think of an example. Um, I don't know. Let's say you've got like a minority government, and there's maybe, or even like Biden. Biden can't get, he can't codify Roe v. Wade. Do you think he should have just used like an executive order to do it, like some kind of emergency power to do it?
Yes.
Okay. Um,
Yeah. Well, he wait no, because there was a supermajority in 2008, I think, for Democrats,
there
but they did,
wasn't really,
or was
but
it 2008,
they were all
2012?
no, they were one short. Like you can go through the list, the timeline. There's never actually a point where they had enough votes to do it.
Oh
It's a
yeah,
bit of a
or I
fabrication.
know the filibuster like fucks everything up,
Mhm.
but I think I don't think codifying Roe v. Wade is within Biden's executive order, um, like privileges.
Okay, but let's say it was, and let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something like a better example. Let's say it was, and let's say, I know that most Americans favor abortion, but let's say they didn't. Let's say most Americans were against abortion. Do you think Biden should, and let's say Biden did have the power, like, I don't know, just this new power, once every 4 years, the president gets to do some like unilateral shit. Would you be okay with that power existing if Biden used it for codifying abortion?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine because if he weren't, that would be a well, it's already a massive interference of human rights to ban abortion. So I think protecting that would be the good thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, I guess like would you so yeah, I guess the idea is like some unilateral like power or some subversion of democracy is okay, right? That's kind of where you're standing.
Um,
If it's for the cause that like you want.
Only if it's extreme. No, no, not for the causes you want, because there are things we disagree on, like that are minuscule. But then, because I feel like, well, Republicans are so fucking insane that what
Mhm.
we end up disagreeing on is like very basic, like human rights shit. Like I, I think you would agree that if fucking 80% of Americans supported killing the other 20%, and there was an executive like unilateral like blocking of that, I'd assume you'd be fine with that, and I would too, because it doesn't matter that democratically people decided, like, no, the other 20% have human rights,
Yeah,
and
I
I would
think like democracy, like I said, like democratic will is not absolute. But then the problem is we're talking about like that's the talking about just like killing other people. Whereas I think one of the big arguments with Roe v. Wade was that it was brought in through a Supreme Court ruling, and the argument in America was never really won properly. Like the use
right.
like the democratic like, and that's kind of what's come to bite people in the ass
Well,
afterwards. And the fact that is that
uh,
yeah, it was kind of like it wasn't really brought about. It should have been codified with a supermajority, but obviously they can't really do that. So
Well,
yeah.
the other thing is that the 73 ruling Roe v. Wade was the grounds they did it on were very weak. They did it
Hmm.
on right to privacy, which there's a whole volley of arguments you could levy against abortion being justified based on privacy. Of course, it's justified for other reasons, but the legal grounding was very weak, and so that was another problem with it. But I feel like, but yeah, no, that was definitely weak, but um but even yeah, even a majority of Americans support Roe v. Wade. But even if they didn't, again, I just think like we're not talking about like a 2% increase on the tax for the Department of Energy. It's not like some minuscule minutia here. Like we're talking about, well, arguably, we're talking about bodily autonomy rights,
Hmm.
which are pretty fundamental. So I think on that level, and it is a tough line to draw, but I think there is a line somewhere where it goes like, yeah, if it really is like to protect human rights, then I'd be okay with like an authority saying like, no, you can't literally legislate away human rights or kill people.
Yeah, but then acknowledging that you still live in a democracy, then it just means that as soon as Republicans get in, then they can say, well, like you just said, you use the bodily like the argument for bodily autonomy. Like I'm pro-choice, but then if you're saying it's like it's a fundamental human right because of a bodily autonomy, then why can't a Republican just come in 4 to 8 years later and just say, well, hang on, the constitutional bodily autonomy rights of fetuses are being overruled, so we got to ban abortion to keep those preserved again, you know?
Well, well, okay. I feel
That's not
like
my
that is
argument, by the way, but they could say that, yeah.
right. Well, they could say that, but I know a lot of conservatives say that. That's obviously not how bodily autonomy. Like, oh, you think the mom has bodily autonomy? Well, there's another body too. Like, well, that's
Hmm.
the point. That's the point of weighing bodily autonomy. Whatever. But no, I think that if Republicans were to come into power, I don't think they at this point. I don't know how much you keep up with like Republicans and how fucking insane they are here in America,
Yep.
but I don't think they would need that. Like, okay, they literally say anything. They will say anything, and their base will just believe it. They're insane. They don't need like a well, the left justified abortion on bodily autonomy, so we're gonna ban it. They could literally say that like we need to ban abortion because George Soros is going around to every Planned Parenthood and sucking the adrenochrome out of the aborted fetuses. And once he amasses enough power, he will implement global communism. And we can't have that. And that's why we need to ban abortion. And every single Republican will be like, yeah, I think that's justified. I don't think they need a reason.
I think it's mostly just because they think pregnancy isn't extreme enough to justify ending a life because they consider the fetus to be a life, no? I feel like the reason for abortion is pretty simple, right?
Or the reason for like their pro-life position, you mean?
Yeah.
Um,
It's not like abortion is like the easiest philosophical argument on earth. It's actually it can get quite difficult with that because, yeah, again, they would say like the fetus is a person with bodily autonomy and it should be preserved. Like that's,
right, but when you said Republicans might come into power and
yeah.
use the autonomy precedent to ban abortion,
Hmm.
I'm saying that they don't need a precedent.
Okay,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need to make up insane like batshit lies.
So is the kind of idea that do you think like the current do you think Republicans are just like incompatible with a democracy then that they might just need to like
Yeah.
even if they do get like like a majority of the vote then they should just be like overridden as much as possible or what?
Well, I think that currently Republicans are, and again, I don't know how much you follow like against the up with like the specific Republican platforms, but they are pretty openly anti-democracy.
Hmm.
They orchestrated a coup.
Yeah.
They have defended that coup. They have called every person who participated in those coup unfairly oppressed political prisoners. They're purging state legislatures of people who didn't go along with the next coup.
Hmm.
I know Trump has like or not retweeted. He's like Truth Social. He's like retruth things about like they're gonna push us to civil war. Like he's literally retweeted memes about like civil war and shit like that. I think they are insane. I think they are unstable. They're openly hostile to democracy and they are openly signaling that they're going to attempt another coup. I think you can make an argument similar to the paradox of tolerance, that a paradox of democracy, that a party that openly runs on the end of democracy shouldn't be allowed to participate in a democracy.
Do you agree with Biden when he draws a distinction between Republicans and MAGA Republicans?
I think that out of all the Republicans, the very thin slice of ones that are not like Trump followers, kind of like like anti-Trump Republicans, I think those are so few that they are insignificant, and they have been dying out extremely quickly because Trump has basically taken over the entire party.
Um, at the moment, it seems that way, but I mean, there was a poll in the New York Times that said like about half of Republican voters were ready to leave Trump behind. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah,
That.
poll finds half of GOP voters are ready to leave Trump behind.
Oh, that's interesting. But I think I think regardless of the voters, I think the politicians, like the GOP politicians, are all in line with Trump.
For them, yeah. I mean, I guess that's usually going to happen when he's the leader, right?
Well,
And then that changes quick. Yeah, I mean, I mean, you say that, but he also had. There are also Republican people who were on the January 6th committee. So I don't know. Like,
well,
it depends on
right? No,
how. Because if you're writing off an entire, the way you're talking about it is like you're kind of writing off almost half of a country at that point, though, right?
the voters. I don't think that let me think. I don't think that a majority of Republican voters are motivated by like evil intention. I just think they're idiots. I just think they're pawns in a chess game being used like to forward like evil intentions. I don't think they are motivated by evil. I think the politicians um are motivated by that. But I don't think the voters are necessarily. I just think they're too stupid to see past it.
Damn. Um. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's kind of an impasse here, where I still have a little bit. I mean, I don't know that much about America, but I still feel like I've got a bit of faith in that like the democratic procedure should be kind of utilized to the greatest extent before we start going into like writing off that many. First of all, I know it's not half of the people; it's more like just over a quarter of eligible voters, but still, it's enough. Like half of the people who vote. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's
Yeah,
just maybe like a value difference here, in that I don't really think. I think democracy should kind of be upheld as much as possible.
I agree, but if because do you know Karl Popper paradox of tolerance? I'm sure you know, right?
Yeah, I do know it, and I understand the concept, and I believe it to an extent. The problem is I don't know who I'm going to trust to decide who crosses the threshold that we can't tolerate them anymore, right? Especially given what happens now, when the fact that like how easy it is for people to get deplatformed or to be written off as like fucking fascists or whatever. Then yeah, I think that's a big problem. Yeah.
I would agree with you to an extent, but I think it's at least when it comes to the Republican Party and how like anti-democratic they are. Like God, God, Jesus Christ. You could even go back to like Bush v. Gore or like the time whatever justice that Obama appointed after Scalia died being completely held up for the rest of his term. I think you could argue that those were very strong indicators that Republicans didn't care about democracy. But then at the moment after January 6th, especially after all of the election fraud bullshit that they knew was
Hmm.
wrong and they were just pushing to like pay off their campaign debts or try and get into power. I think you could argue after that moment, it is beyond a reasonable doubt that they just are completely opposed to democracy. And then even all the shit after, like right now, they're openly trying to agitate for another coup.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean they were like that before the election happened, and the democratic procedure got rid of them, didn't it?
They were like that like when before the election.
Like right before. Trump said the election would be rigged even before it happened.
Oh yeah, and God, oh my God, dude, so much crazy shit happened, in that like October, September, August 2020 period that like I forget it, but like wasn't he saying that like we should delay the election or that people should be able to vote twice or some shit?
Um, maybe, yeah. He said a lot of mad shit. Yeah,
Yeah, he
I
said some
think vote
insane.
twice was. I think that was probably hinted. Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, that and then I know he said we should delay the election when he suggested we should delay the election because there was going to be mail-in ballot fraud. But yeah, no, yeah, you're correct. Up until the election, he definitely was priming the audience to um I guess see election fraud where there was none. Like he was definitely saying like this is going to be rigged. This is going to be, this is going to be a fraudulent election. So when it
Mm.
actually does happen and he loses and he says, "See, what did I tell you? It was fraudulent." Then he gets everyone to believe him. Yeah, I would say he was agitating for that before the election.
Yeah, and yeah, that's why. And my argument there is that that was a point when some people might have thought, well, fuck, if this guy gets in again, like we might have to have our own coup to get rid of him, right? Because he was anti-democratic. Yeah, I don't know. I always feel like that resort should be. Uh, I think there might be an argument where there is a time to do that in the name of the paradox of tolerance, but I feel like people are just so quick to say that that's the case, and that
I know.
worries me because
I think. Are you saying like where the line ought to have been drawn, or where it ought to be drawn?
yeah, and I don't know who I trust to say where that line is. And I think we
Yeah,
get into a pretty dangerous place when people take that into their own hands.
that's true. I mean, we do have institutions that rely on rational judgment. Like I mean, like court and juries are, yeah. Like you look at the evidence and you use rational logic. You can't really draw an objective line of like, well, there's a 95% chance he's guilty based on this. You just gotta kind of trust in a jury to make a rational decision. And I certainly don't think like Twitter users are on the same level of rationality as juries. But I think we like tend to think of Twitter users when we think of like insane people like accusing other people of other shit. So
Not monarchs either, right?
hmm?
Not monarchs either, insofar as who's willing to draw that line of when it's okay to intervene with the democratic process, right?
Yes, but I don't think that a monarch would operate on. Let me think here. I don't think a monarch would operate purely on morals. More so, something that would be the moral thing to do comes about as a result of a lot of other decisions that where their sole motivator wasn't morals. Like here's an example, right? Like America giving billions to Ukraine, right? And we're helping Ukraine, supporting Ukraine. That is the morally correct position,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but it's not motivated by a principled stance against a country being invaded because of course America doesn't care. Like we fund Israel, we fund Saudi Arabia, we invaded Iraq, we invaded Afghanistan, we have people in Syria, etc. Like we don't take a stance against wars of aggression. But because there was a misalign in our geopolitical interests and which side was doing a war of aggression, we ended up standing on the side of like the right side. And I think that that can occasionally happen. Like, okay, like yeah, if that does happen, like sometimes there can be good outcomes, but it's not necessarily motivated by good intentions.
Do you think in a world where it's okay for the monarch to step in every now and then, do you think, given the kind of people royals are or monarchs, do you think it would be more likely that they would use that power overall over time for good or bad?
Oh, for bad, certainly.
Okay.
But I was just saying that um if they were to have that power, i would I would rather they use it for good. But in my ideal world, that that power should not exist. There should not be a monarchical power.
Okay. Um, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
um do you play chess?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like chess. That's all I wanted to say.
Cool. Based.
Okay. Oh wait, okay, this sounds weird,
Hmm.
but I clicked on the link for your Discord server and it says I'm banned. And I was wondering why the hell am I banned? But I remember I had like the cringiest like right wing like Kyle Rittenhouse fanboy phase like 2 years ago, and I
Okay.
think I said something inflammatory. So I've been banned for like 2 years. Can I be let back? Can I be let back in?
Let me find you in the ban list. Sure, though. Yeah. You mean you're not a Kyle Rittenhouse fanboy anymore?
No, no, no.
Damn. All right, let's see. Where's the. Yeah, I'll find you on the banned list and I will take you off it. I'll let you know when that's done.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
All right, it was a good talk.
Yeah. Take care, man. Okay.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye.
See ya.